Pretty much everyone has read this book already, but here's my plot summary anyways, except I try to leave out all the snarling, smirking, Feyre describing things she could never paint, and growling, because then this video would be like 4 hours. Feyre, our main character, is in a bit of a dilemma. You see, there's this unusually large wolf over there about to kill a deer, and Feyre needs that deer to feed her family. So she's deciding whether or not to kill the wolf. Now, this wolf could be a normal wolf, or it could be a fae. The humans and fae of this world, which happens to look a lot like the UK, have a peace treaty which was formed 500 years ago, so maybe— oh, she killed it. Feyre takes the wolf's pelt and the deer they were fighting over and returns home. Her family used to be pretty rich, but their dad lost their fortune, so now they live in this tiny cottage. Feyre's two sisters, Nesta and Elaine, have taken on the burden of being completely useless, but it's all for a good reason. They just want Feyre to have that cool, hated child becomes fairy princess story. Anyways, the next day a beast comes crashing through the door and is all like, "Who killed my wolf?" And Feyre's like, "Yeah, I did, but I didn't know it was a fairy." And the beast's all like, and Feyre's like, "Oh fine, true, I actually hate fairies, so I killed it." And then the beast is like, "Okay, I can either kill you or take you back to fairyland," which is called Prythian, I think it's Prythian, where you can live out the rest of your days. In Prythian, the beast turns into a man called Tamlin, and he's wearing a funny mask. And then she meets his friend Lucien, who's also wearing a funny mask. And pretty much everyone is wearing a funny mask. So it turns out everyone is cursed and they can't take their masks off, which means Feyre is going to have to fall in love with a man who wears a mask, who's overall generally pretty normally attractive, but he's wearing a mask so she can't be sure that he's completely attractive. Feyre can do whatever she likes in this kingdom, and she has access to tons of food, she has her own bedroom, maids, and so much more. So she decides to spend her time escaping to get back to her horrible family because she thinks, or she knows, they can't look after themselves. She traps a creature called a Suriel, I want to say, which is a creature that answers questions truthfully or something. The Suriel's all like, "Oh, you're the High Lord's human woman. Well, you should be careful, it is not safe anymore, not even for your human realm. Like, just the other day, I was surprised not listening." Feyre is not listening because she's too busy being angry at the fact that she was referred to as his human woman. Anyway, Tamlin tells Feyre that he actually glamoured her entire family and they're super rich again and think that Feyre's staying with her aunt. And she's like, "Oh, okay, cool." So now she's not gonna escape and she spends her time painting. There's a very big, important fairy festival going on, and Tamlin tells Feyre it's too dangerous for her to attend. So she needs to stay in her room, lock the doors until morning, and not go anywhere. And she's like, "Okay." And then she goes to the big important fairy festival and some evil fairies start messing with her, but luckily a dark and mysterious stranger saves her and she's taken back to her room. She still doesn't listen because she leaves her room again and is bitten by a feral, high on magic Tamlin. Feyre can't read. That's an important thing I forgot to mention. It will come back later. Then there's another party and Feyre's actually invited this time, so she dances with Tamlin all night, and then the next day everyone's super tired and they get together for lunch, but then they're interrupted. Lucien quickly hides Feyre, but the unwanted guest, who is the handsome stranger she met at the festival, his name is Rysand, finds her and asks for her name. Feyre gives him the name of her neighbour Clara and he's gone. Tamlin decides it's not safe for Feyre anymore and he sends her home. But before he sends her away, he tells her two things. First of all, he's like, "Feyre, do not tell anyone the truth about where you were." And she's like, "Okay." And then he's like, "I love you." And Feyre's like, "Okay," and leaves. She returns home to a giant estate and her family's like, "Oh, you're back from our aunt's house." And Feyre's like, "Yeah, she died and left me all her money." Elaine and her father believe her and are like, "Okay, let's count your giant fortune and throw a ball or something." But Nesta's like, "You're lying," and apparently the glamouring did not work on Nesta and she knows, so Feyre tells her everything. Nesta and Feyre become a bit closer, which is nice. And then Feyre finds out that her neighbour Clara, whose name she gave to Rysand instead of her own, was burnt alive with her whole family in their house. And she's like, "Oh, that was meant to be me and my family." So she tells Nesta to protect the family and she returns to the Spring Court where she finds Alice, who was her maid. Alice tells her that Tamlin was taken by Amarantha, who is the stereotypical fairy queen villain creature that controls all the courts and took all the High Lord's powers. It turns out, to break the curse, Tamlin had to get a fairy-hating human to fall in love with him. And since Feyre didn't say "I love you" back, Amarantha took Tamlin. Farah goes to Amarantha's under the mountain court, and Amarantha decides instead of just killing her and making this all go away, she's going to make Farah go through 3 trials. And if Farah completes them, then Tamlin will be saved along with the other fairies. There's also a riddle, and if Farah solves the riddle, she doesn't have to do any of the tasks and everyone will be free. But the riddle's too hard, so we're doing the trials. The first trial is escaping from a giant worm, which she completes using her hunter skills. The second trial requires reading, which Farah can't do, but luckily Rysand helps her. The third trial requires Farah killing 3 fairies, and she kills the first 2, and the third one is Tamlin. Farah's like, I don't think Amarantha would let me kill Tamlin, she doesn't want him dead. So she stabs him, and it turns out his heart is made of stone, so he's fine. Amarantha's all mad and starts torturing Farah, and then Farah's like, oh, that riddle! The answer is love. And everyone's like, yay! And the curse is lifted, and Tamlin kills Amarantha, but Farah's dying. So all the High Lords get together to make her a fairy, and she's reborn. Farah and Tamlin and everyone else returns back to their courts, and that's where the story ends. This time, won't you say